In this video, I'm going to show you how to use if condition within approvals kit. So this will be a simple application, simple workflow process. Now the workflow process over here is there's a conditional stage. So in a stage, we are going to use condition, and the trigger condition is basically, so take for example, in your organization, if you have an expense management system whereby you put an approval process for, say, doing certification within your organization. So if the certification cost is greater than $200, and if you claim for that, then only it will go for approval. Other than that, it won't go for any approval, and it will be automatically approved by the system. So that's the use case. Now this is a fictitious organization whereby Girish, Adele, Alex, Lee are the employees of the organization, and Girish reports to Alex. So Girish is going to submit that request, and if the certification cost is greater than $200, then his manager Alex is going to get those certification approval request. So to start with, this is the business approval management approval kit solution, which I have installed. So in order to create a workflow, what you need to do is first go into the approval designer. Now going into the approval designer, here you click on new process designer. Now in the process designer, in my earlier videos I had showed you how to create a single stage and multi-stage approval process. Now here we are going to just use a single stage. So the name is would be certification request. I just put if condition. Okay. Now if I if, let me click on save first, and now if I click on add stage, so I need to add a stage. Now I'll put a stage name, so I'd say stage cert request. Now here I can select condition. Okay, I can put no condition, or I have an option to select if else or switch. Now in this video I'm going to talk about if else. In the next video I'll talk about the switch condition. So if else condition, so what I'm going to do, I'll select if else, and I will try to put some condition around. Now I need to make use of request data. Now request data is basically a usage of variable within your application. Now here, as I do not have any variables, I need to create a new variable. Okay, so let me cancel this off and go into variables, and I'll call this as where variable name certification cost, and this is a number, and the default value is, let me put, say, $50. Okay, and I'll click on add, and I'll click on close. Now again, coming back here, add a stage, and I'll start stage cert request, put some description around here, and put a condition if else. So now if I click on request data drop down, here I'll get that variable where certification cost. Now if the certification cost is greater than or equal to static value, so I'm going to pick the static value, not the request data. I'll just put 200. So if you go into the use case which says trigger approval only when certification cost is greater than $200, here if else where certification cost greater than or equal to 200, then only trigger this. So if you see the design over here, now within the stage request itself, okay, within the stage request itself, so if the workflow triggers, then it checks for that if condition. Okay, if it is greater than equal to 200, then do the approval process, else don't do anything. Okay, this is what we are going to demonstrate. Okay, so if it is true, then do this. Now how do we know who's the approver? So I'll click on add node, and I'll say this is manager approval, and in my case manager is, I'll just hard code the manager. However, I have an option to either select a dynamic option. So what I can do, I can just select dynamic and say manager of initiator, or I can hard code the user. Now I know my manager is Alex, as it's quite evident from this diagram, and this workflow is only specific to me, so I'm okay with it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put Alex's name over here. Remember, you need to click add, because this is not just it will save automatically. You need to click add, then it will add Alex's name. Notification default delegation rule is none. And maybe it's a good practice to put the description as well, so just put some description. Okay, so that's it. You click on save, and now your workflow process is ready. So what we have done, we have made use of an if clause before even you even reach that stage. So once you get into that stage, it will first check the if condition, and then the manager will approve the request if the value is greater than 200. Now, in order to demonstrate that, we can make use of model driven app. Like in my earlier examples, what I've done is, like, I've created a model driven app, and if you add a record within the model driven app, you uh, trigger this workflow process. However, with the time constraint, what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly spin up a Power Automate flow. Okay, so a Power Automate flow, which will be a manually triggering flow, and I'm going to manually send some numbers. Okay, so if I click on, say, create, and I'll say it's an instant cloud flow. Okay, now I'll just name it as uh, cert expense claim manual trigger flow. Click on create. Now, I'll come to this. Here, once you have done with this, what you need to do, you need to click on save. Once you click on save, then click on publish. So I'll click on publish. And once it is all set, you just click on publish, and it might take a minute or so to process this information. Okay, so here, manually triggering a flow. Now here, what I need to do, I need to make use of a parameter. So I'll put, say, number, because we need to say what is that expense request, right? So I'll just call it as certification cost, and this is the number. Okay, so maybe by default number I'm going to put, say, $20. Okay, and that's it. So this is how you basically put that request. Okay, now if you see over here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to add an action. Click on add an action, and here just type approval. The moment you type approval, you'll see a whole bunch of information, but then go to runtime, select custom, so that you see the approvals get information. Start business approval process, select that. And for the workflow process, select the one which we just created. So that is certification request if condition v1. Okay, so this is the workflow process. Now what it asks for where certification cost. Now here, what we will do, we will say that, okay, this will come from a dynamic parameter, and this dynamic is coming from the manually triggering a flow, and this is certification cost. Okay, so when you run a flow, it will ask for a number. You give that number, and that number is linked up over here. Requested by, I'm going to hard code it again. You can make it dynamic, and you can attach it to your backend model driven app or canvas application. Okay, so in the interest of time, I'm just gonna hard code this value, and that's it. Okay, so all good. I'll just click on save. Now once you do that, uh, we may need to test this, because we are not sure whether this is going to run correctly or not. So there's a lot of troubleshooting activity we may need to do if the flow fails. Okay, so looks good as of now, because this Power Automate is now connected to that business process workflow which we have created. So now, in order to test this, I'll click on test, and I'll click on manually test this. Click on test, and then it will request for a the claim process. Okay, so before that, it will ask me to sign in. So I'm gonna just sign in, and I'll say certification cost is maybe $270. Okay, and I'll click on run the flow. Now the flow is run. Uh, I'll open approvals kit in another tab, just to show you what happens. So whether the flow has triggered or not. So if you see over here in my submitted workflow, number 1035 certification request if condition, so it has triggered. Okay, so it has actually triggered this workflow. Now whether it has gone into any stage, so we will come to know soon. If yes, then you will see one more entry over here once we refresh the screen. So now you see the Lego as an approver for the previous entry. But if I refresh the screen, and if it actually crosses that information, then yes, it has gone to stage cert request. So that's one which we created, and it's gone to Alex Wilbur. So Alex Wilbur, how it go to Alex Wilbur? Because Alex is Girish's manager. Girish has submitted the certification request for more than $200, and that's why it has triggered to Alex Wilbur. Now if I go to Alex, if I'm logged in as Alex, so this is the Alex's window, and Alex should receive a notification of approval. Okay, so it might take some time to receive this notification. And once Alex has received this notification, then Alex can either approve or reject, and then your entire workflow process would be completed. Now, as you see over here, Alex has just received an email. Let's see what is it. Certification request, if condition approval, manager approval, Alex. Alex can say either approve or reject. I'll say approve, and I'll put say okay. Click on submit, and your entire workflow process is now complete. So here, currently instance status is showing as new. Now you saw that Teams has also given me a notification, and if I just refresh the screen, I can see that the entire workflow process is completed. So as you see over here, manager approval, Alex, this is completed. Okay. Now, what we are going to do now, we are going to again run this Power Automate flow, and let's go here, click on run, and this time I'm gonna just put the number as maybe $75. So if the value is $75, then it should not go to an approval process. Okay, so that's the whole objective. Now I've done that, flow is run successfully. If I go into the application, I'll just refresh this. I should see a second entry in the submitted workflow, which is there. Okay, so this is good. So this is the new one which we have just submitted for $75. And then here, received approval request. Now what the condition what we have put is, if it is greater than $200, then only go to Girish's manager, who is Alex. Okay, now we have put $75. Let's see what happens. Now, if you see over here, there is nothing or no entry that has come over here. That means this entire workflow is now completed. Okay, so we do not have any approver. There is no need to go to the approval process, and thereby, you have cut down the stage of making those workflow process complex. So you're checking the condition well before it reaches that stage, and this is how you basically create a single stage approval workflow using if condition. Thanks for watching.